Hello, all, and welcome to Are You Hooked, where we discuss how a TV show captivates an audience. My name is Jennifer Hahn.
And I'm Sarah Callan.
And we are fascinated by what draws people into a story and want to understand the pieces that get us hooked on a TV show. Today, we will be discussing the opening scene of one of the greatest shows of all time, one of my personal favorite shows ever, The Wire. And we're going to be talking about the opening scene for season 1, episode 1 of this iconic show. So, Sarah, do you want to give us a short description of what happens in this opening scene?
Yes, in this opening scene, we are at a crime scene and we get to witness the interrogation of a witness to the crime.
Yeah, that describes a conversation unfolds.
Yes.
So we are going to include in the show notes the timestamps for this scene. It's basically everything up to the opening credits sequence for the show. Go watch it on HBO Max or wherever you can find The Wire and come back and listen to the rest of our conversation. So I guess we should also preface the rest of our episode today by saying I have seen maybe like 4 out of the 5 seasons of The Wire. You have seen season 1 of The Wire, I believe.
I've seen season 1. I think I've watched a couple episodes of season 2, but I just stopped for some unexplained reason.
What happened?
I don't know. I was watching The Wire and then I stopped watching The Wire, and I cannot tell you why, because that was years ago now. So I don't know what past Sarah was thinking, but she was wrong.
She was wrong.
That's just the TLDR. Past Sarah was wrong. She made some mistakes.
You know, life be lifing. Like it's you're just like, I don't know what happened, but I know I've watched something related to this thing or a couple episodes. So we are familiar with The Wire, especially with season 1 of The Wire. So that's going to color kind of our conversation. We're already fans of The Wire too, so that probably colors it as well. But both Sarah and I got to watch episode 1 of season 1 of The Wire together when we were in LA recently. And we both hadn't seen the show in years at this point. Like I think it'd been like 10 years for me since I'd watched The Wire. And I think it'd been many, many years for you. So it was
7 years
kind of
me.
fresh.
Yeah.
It was pretty fresh for us. We got to like come back to it with kind of a new, more developed brain than we did 10 years ago, 8-9 years ago. So I'm curious for you, Sarah, based on the opening scene of The Wire, were you hooked on the show? Why or why not?
Yes. So based on this opening scene of The Wire, I was hooked. I am a big fan of mysteries, detective stories. I love a good police procedural. So I'm interested in those types of shows. And what I really love about this opening scene, and I think that's what makes this opening scene so special, is at first it looks like this is just going to be a police procedural. You know, we see people collecting evidence, you know, we're at the crime scene. But then as this conversation unfolds, you realize that this is not your typical police procedural. Yes, we're going to be following this detective as he's, you know, doing his job, but this show is about so much more. And I love how, you know, when you first start the episode, you think you're getting one thing, and by the end of the opening scene, you realize that this is something completely different. There's so much more meat here than what you would get in a typical police procedural. So I think this is just a brilliant opening scene. But what about you? Based on this opening scene, are you hooked?
Yes. And I am more hooked watching this opening scene of The Wire now, having rewatched it 10 years later with kind of more thoughts and life lived than I did when I, you know, was much younger, and was even more impressed with this opening scene than I probably was on the first watch. I think in the first watch, I didn't know what to expect, but now understanding the kind of ethos and the mission of The Wire, this opening scene is a work of genius to me. There are lines that the characters say in this opening scene in the short 2-3 minutes that is the thesis of the show. Like, I think the character says at one point, "This is America, man." And I think that's what The Wire, from its origins, from the creators, like, heart for creating this entire show, is to expose and showcase the unfair societal dynamics that exist in America, and to shed light on them, and to humanize groups that have been demonized, and to showcase the complexities of our legal system, our poverty and wealth dynamics in our country. And that is somehow all in like 3 minutes of this opening scene. And I had no idea about that the first watch, but in this most recent watch of The Wire, I just was floored in the first 3 minutes, getting to see this opening scene and just how much they've packed in, and kind of are like launching us on this ride that I think on the first time around you don't even know you're going on. But now, having been on that ride, I'm going back to the ride at the beginning saying, wow, they've planted all those seeds from the start and they knew what they were doing from the beginning.
Absolutely. And I love how rhythmic the conversation is, cuz I mean this
Yeah.
3-minute scene is mostly just these two characters talking. Like outside of like the crime scene people picking stuff up at the beginning, like the entire thing is just them talking, and it's absolutely riveting. And so I think obviously all of those themes that you mentioned are in here, but I think that the pacing of the lines and watching these two individuals interact with each other, and obviously we know McNulty is a detective,
Yeah.
and so you would think that he is the person of authority in this conversation, but you see how they're kind of like
Mm-hmm.
feeling each other out, and can I trust you with this piece of information? Or there are times when McNulty like follows up with a question, or like, let me
Yeah.
make sure that I heard you right, and like restates what was already said but in a different way. And I love the pacing of all of that, because even though it's just a conversation, these two people talking, it's it's electric, and you can't look away. There's so much action just in their conversation, which is, I mean, what a way to like engross us into this world.
It's oddly an incredibly stationary scene for a show that is so dynamic, especially if you think about a show that covers crime and the police unit and whatnot. You'd think you'd have like a big splash with, you're thrown into a chaotic like police department, detective department. They're on the go in the midst of action, and there's stakes, there's emotion, there's drama in this opening scene. But like you're saying, it's just a conversation between two people, and that kind of breaks, I think, some of the expectations of what we might expect from a police procedural or a show about crime, and allows us to kind of like enter into this world and this headspace. The other thing that I really love about this opening scene that is so distinctive of The Wire as well is that it's funny, like it's serious but also really funny at the same time. Like, I think a 2/3 of the conversation is them honestly going back and forth about like, so the guy's name is Snot. Did he like that name? It's not Boogie. Oh, okay, okay. So he showed up one day, didn't have tissue, and like his mama gave him this government name and thought all about it, but y'all call him Snot. And I think it's one, showcasing the chasm between the world of the police and their inability to understand the world of the crews of the streets, but also it's just comical and it's funny, and there's kind of this fixation on this small detail that they're both like spinning around even though it's a dramatic moment. And I think The Wire does that throughout the show as well, but it's shining so brightly here in this short sequence as well, of almost an infusion of kind of this snarky sense of humor in the midst of an incredibly dramatic and emotional scene and moment.
And I think that's why the writing is so brilliant, is because it is dramatic and you do feel the stakes, but the show knows that we can't like immediately go like super deep, just like straight from
Yeah.
the jump. So the way to inject levity is through the name of the character who was shot, which Snot is so funny when McNulty is like, who shot Snot? Like,
Yeah.
hilarious because we're all children and that's still funny. And so
Yeah.
I think that that's such a great way to like ease us into this world of crime. And I think even us not seeing the dead body until the end
Yeah.
of the scene is brilliant because it follows the line that you referenced when he says, "This is America, man,"
America.
and then it zooms out, and so then we see the body. So I think
Mm-hmm.
it's perfectly paced, and this scene is indicative of what the show does, is understanding human nature and how how to expose us who haven't lived this life, who, you know, are not from, you know, slums in Baltimore, et cetera, how to immerse us in this world so that we can understand and receive the information without being so overwhelmed that we check out. And so I think
Mm-hmm.
The Wire is just brilliant at balancing all of those tones so that we can go along on this ride. And we see that right here from the opening scene.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And it also is a great introduction to the character of McNulty as well, because he, for all intents and purposes, is our protagonist throughout a lot of The Wire, even though I would argue that there's like 15 protagonists of The Wire. But he's the one that like inches out a little bit more that we're following through a lot of the character arcs and the story dynamics. But he's still an enigma to us, I think, by the end of the scene. But what is so distinctive is that there's this deep curiosity that he has and these fixations that he has that he cannot let go. Him continuing to spin around on the whole name of Snot Boogie is like a great example of that. But kind of that line of questioning, his inability to like let it go, is something that gets him into trouble, but also is kind of his greatest strength throughout the show, where he just has this like voracious appetite to understand. And there's a moment between McNulty and the kid that he's talking to where he's like, man, but that doesn't seem fair. And the kid goes, life just be that way, I guess. And I think that also represents the headspaces and the environments that they inhabit, which is McNulty, for so much of the show, and a character defining moment for him is like he has to keep pushing until he sees some sort of justice, and he can't turn away from the corruption, and he has to keep going and he can't let it go. And for this kid on the street, like the unfairness of the world is the norm for him, and that's just the way life is, and they are operating and working within that. And I think that small like beat in the conversation is a great example of these two groups of people that exist in totally different worlds and have accepted what's possible from the world from very, very different angles, too, around what is fair and what is not fair. And how much do you feel like you have the agency to even change what doesn't seem to be fair versus you have to accept and try and get as much as you can from within an unfair world. And I think that was a great conversation beat that happens between the two of them.
I also love that we see, even though they are, you know, on opposite sides of a lot of things, these two individuals can agree that shot that Snot didn't need to get shot. He didn't need to be killed. And I
Yeah.
think that that's also really helpful, you know, even though they are on adversarial sides of the law, they can agree on this. This is breaking the rules of, you know, Baltimore
What
in
is
general,
just.
but also
Yeah.
the rules of this group in particular. And so I
Mm.
thought that that was really interesting. And what I love in this conversation is that we see the rules of the streets, you know.
Hmm.
Snot would always steal the money and then they'd beat him up because that's not okay. And so they had to take action to right his wrong. But there is a boundary and a line, and somebody crossed that. So
Yeah.
I think it's so effective in immersing us into this world and everything that happens there that we might not know about.
Hmm. Hmm. And the fact that they are having this whole conversation, the fact that they have moments where they are in alignment, that they are discussing all of this, I think also showcases the complicated relationship between cops and criminals throughout the show, and how those lines are actually quite blurry. And a lot of times the cops are the criminals, and they're sometimes more corrupt than the criminals themselves. And there's more humanity within the street crews than there is within the police departments. And I think that's a fascinating dynamic that we're seeing here, is that they are conversing together, and there's not a clear power dynamic. Like you were saying, it seems to be that McNulty would be the person in authority, but he is not in this conversation. He's actually like desperately trying to listen and understand how this is all working to get to the bottom of it. And that kid he's talking to is kind of leading the conversation, you know? And I think that's a fascinating part of this as well, is that no group is the hero, no group is demonized from the jump. But they're just kind of humans trying to figure it out together.
Yeah, something horrible has happened that we can all agree is horrible.
Yeah.
What do we do from here?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And I think it's also notable too that the whole scene starts with this opening shot of the blood strewn on the street and the police car lights reflected in it. And like visually, that shot is jarring. It calls our attention. It is a shot that is violent, even without seeing the violence. But I think it also is like the perfect composition of like what the show is, which is this constant interplay between the police and their presence and the lights in the neighborhoods, and also the violence that is being done both within the police departments and within the streets as well. And so I think that was just like a visually comprehensive shot of like the world that The Wire inhabits, and all of the pieces that are in it is police car lights reflected in the streets in this way. So strong opening shot, and we kind of just wandered up to our two characters. But it definitely frames, I think, the emotional tone of the show by starting with that, of all things.
Yeah, yeah. You know where you are, and I think it also really brilliantly sets the stakes for the conversation as well. Because you, with that much blood, you know that somebody has died. You know that we're at a crime scene. And so then this is a big deal, this conversation, because we need to find out what happened to this kid. So yeah, such a great way to to welcome us into this whole world.
Yeah. Any other big things that we want to call out in this opening scene, and why it just grabbed us and sucked us into the show?
Yeah, I think the only other thing, and we already touched on it, but I loved when McNulty is asking, like, why did you even let him into the game when this happens over and over again?
Yeah.
And his response is, we got to. This is America, man. And the way that hits is just so brilliant. So like, shout out to whoever edited this, because that line happens and then it just zooms out to see like, oh, we're not just talking about this card game, but we are actually talking about America. And that is what the show is doing. And the way that this scene just kind of pulls the rug out from under you with that line, I think is brilliant. Like just perfectly paced, perfectly timed. It comes at just the right moment. Man, it's so good.
Yeah. And that, to your point earlier, that zoom out after this is America, man. And we zoom out and we see this young kid on the street.
Yeah.
Dead cold, and the cops trying to like suck information out from this other kid. Like that whole scene is the exclamation point of that thesis of what this kid says. And I think, gosh, that like when we watched this together in LA, I think we both turned to each other and we were like, oh my gosh, like The Wire knows exactly who it is and what it wants to say and how it's going to shake your worldview, and it's going to do it, and you're going to have a good time because you're talking about snot and boogie and names.
It's hilarious
for 3 minutes, but it will not just breeze by this either. It's going to give you the gut punch, and then we get tossed into this really like rhythmic and momentum filled opening credit sequence, which is fabulous. It's kind of genius. It's like, all right, we're going to give you the emotional gut punch, but then toss you right into like, and you want to see how this is all going to go down? Let's go on this journey. And you just, gosh, take me now, The Wire. Take me now. It's so good.
We are ready.
It's
We're
genius.
ready to keep watching.
Yeah. Yeah. I think there's so many opening scenes of shows and so many hooked episodes where we've talked about like there's so much intrigue and there's all these curiosities and these questions, or it's incredibly there's a character that's kind of dissonant that we are leaning into. That's what's making us hooked onto the show. But I think The Wire's opening scene has this extra dimension of a thesis, a set of intellectual ideas about what the world is like, that it is somehow communicated in a short period of time in an opening scene that is rare to find in a show. It's easy to feel intrigued. It's harder to feel like you've been hit in the face with a thesis and now you are going to watch the show to see how they're going to defend and back up that thesis and draw you in that way. I would say Euphoria's opening scene maybe does something like this. Like there's a world view that's presented. It's not just sheer curiosity or intrigue that's allowing you to lean in.
Yeah, I think that's a really great point because I feel like there's been a few seasons of TV that we've reviewed on TVNS where we're like halfway through and are like, what is this show trying to say about humanity? And we're going to find out as the show goes on. But it's fascinating that The Wire in the first 3 minutes is like, this is what we're saying about humanity. This is what we're saying about America. Buckle up, because here we go. So that's such a great point. And you don't get that in a lot of shows, I feel like. Oh, man, The Wire is so good.
Yeah. Most shows are like, here's a little baby carrot. Do you want it? Come down this like dark corridor and maybe I'll show you where it leads to. The Wire's like, I'm going to dump a bushel of carrots on you. And after that, you're going to be surrounded by carrots and you're going to want to know how we got a whole bushel of them and how we have the audacity to dump the bushel on top of you. So that's the difference. You know, you're like, not lured into a secret passageway to find the carrot. You're like, oh no, I've been given 10,000 carrots on top of me now, and I need to like crawl my way out somehow and go find out.
Yeah. This is what we believe. This is what we're saying. Keep watching to find out why. Yeah.
And keep watching to like see how this could be so true.
Yeah.
Or not. So, man, clearly we are fans of The Wire's opening scene. We are hooked. Give us more carrots dumped on us in this way. Smacked in our face, gladly. We are bruised and beaten, but we are loving it. And we are going to get to review and talk about the ending scene of The Wire's first episode, which is, I think, even more exciting and interesting as well. So stay tuned for that coming out here on the feed soon. But man, this is your excuse to go watch The Wire again. It is truly a work of pure genius and also an important work, and oddly still so relevant, more relevant here in 2026. So go check out the show, come back, listen to the rest of our conversation in our next episode about the ending sequence. But man, I think definitively we are hooked. We were hooked. We are hooked on The Wire after its opening scene. So, all right. Hope you have an amazing week, and we'll see you all again very soon. Thank you for listening to today's episode of TV and Us. We are part of the Movie Archer podcast network, so check out moviearcher.com to learn more.
Our name sums it up. We're big fans of TV and the powerful ways we can connect with each other and the world around us. This podcast is about all of us and our shared stories.
You can subscribe to this podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you tune into your favorite shows. Drop us a rating and review, letting us know your thoughts about today's episode.
You can connect with us on Instagram, Threads, and Blue Sky at tvnuspod, or email us at tvnuspod@gmail.com. Check out our website, andusmedia.co, for the latest on TV and Us and our other podcast, Movies and Us.
We hope you have an amazing week, and we can't wait to see y'all very soon.